Hello and welcome to number 27, episode 27 of the
Woohoo!
We All Serve podcast. That's right, woohoo! Good times. This is a very, very special one, and I say that every time, but this time I really mean it. I mean it every time. This time I really, really mean it.
For real,
Um,
for real.
if
We've been stalking Steve for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I were to get a dime for every time somebody drops our guest's name, I would have a very full piggy bank. Gotta say it.
Yeah, just the last 3 casts they've asked us about Steve. So we're just so grateful to have him on and bend his ear and learn about his story. He's just such a good guy for an army person. So
I'm gonna be curious to see the dynamic over here. To see with our guest over here, are you actually going to beat up on the army in this conversation?
No, Steve's my buddy, man.
I mean, listen, I'm the junior officer over here, so I mean, you could beat up on me, but General Curda, I don't know. But before we get there, we're gonna bring in Steve in a second. So Angel, how are you? Happy New Year.
I'm really good. Happy New Year to you, man. Things are going good with the business, and how about you?
You know, it's good. It's
Did you get your stimulus check? Did you get your check that should have been made out to Jeff Bezos?
I did. It popped into the bank account magically, and which is good because, as you know, without going in too much detail on our streaming platform, I have been all over the place for a variety of military responsibilities, and so I wasn't sure the money would find me, but it found me, which is cool. So I'm happy.
Good deal. Good
Yeah,
deal.
it's good. And you celebrated a nice New Year's at home, no trouble?
Yeah. No, it wasn't. I'm in Central Time, but I celebrated as Dick Clark would have wanted it at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock Eastern Time, because I'm old and because that's how Dick Clark would have wanted it. Rest his soul.
I was Mountain Time last week, and it was great because I was able to go to sleep nice and early, and I celebrated New Year's. And then I was done. It was good. It was good. Woke up in the morning, and even the dog did not stir from all the fireworks around us. So good times. But to all of our listeners, I definitely say happy New Year. Glad you're back with us.
And if you like the cast, like it, share it, give it to your buddies, spam it, whatever you can do.
That is right. That is right. So definitely click subscribe on any platform you're using. We are streaming live right now on YouTube, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. But the podcast is available on your favorite podcast app. So make sure you're clicking rate, subscribe, share. It makes it easier for people to find this conversation. And we are excited for a jam-packed lineup this year. We already have a bunch of the next shows lined up, some really, really awesome guests. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to bring our guest up there on the screen. There he is. And Angel, be gentle. You are being ganged up on yet again by 2 Army guys. So here we go. Retired Brigadier General.
That's why I had to go to the gym before I came on the show. I had to make sure I get my swole on,
Yeah.
And that guy's already got me beat because he's got a full head of hair. So
hey, good to be here, guys.
Retired Brigadier General Steve Curda formerly served on the governor's cabinet as the director of the Illinois Department of Veterans Affairs. We've actually had 2 IDVA directors so far, so this is number 3. He was responsible for establishing long-term strategic goals for the future of IDVA and provide oversight of 4 veterans homes caring for over 900 veterans and coordinated over 80 veteran service offices throughout the state of Illinois. Dr. Curda, that's right, he has a Ph.D. in educational psychology and instructional technology from the University of Oklahoma, serves as an associate professor in the National College of Education, National Louis University. In fact, I think it was on our very first episode with Paul Knudsen that Dr. Curda's name first came up in conversation, and is the senior advisor to the president on student veterans programs. He has previously held faculty positions at Florida State University, University of Toledo, University of West Florida as a professor of Instructional Technology. He's a graduate of the U.S. Army War College and has served in the United States military for over 30 years in active duty, guard, and reserve positions. I guess that makes you a three-time veteran. I don't know if that counts, but Dr. Curda, General Curda, sir, it's a pleasure to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. And as you're reading in my bio, it reads more like an obituary than really a biography. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, let me just tell you how much we're gonna miss you. When it starts there, and it's all uphill from there. You know? Yay!
Right.
I love you, man. He's a good dude.
Don't you always wanted to be incognito at your own funeral just to see what people are saying?
Right.
There you go.
I never liked him. He owed me money.
Yeah.
You know? Well, I'll tell you, all those educational credentials and all the different universities you teach at. I know that me personally, every time I sit down with you and I walk away and I come away a much smarter and more well-rounded leader just from just our chats and sitting around having a few beers and smoking cigars. It's just always such a pleasure.
Yeah, I enjoy that as well. And it's smart, or more smart, or smarter. You can't say more smarter.
You're right. You're right. And I'm definitely less educated.
There you go. I had to nitpick these Navy guys. They barely speak English. You
have to.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
He's the only guy who gets away with this. He's the only one who gets away with this. Everybody else, I correct them. It's so funny. See, that's what happens when I let my guard down with my friends.
Yeah. Well, Angel, take it away.
Well, Steve, I just want to thanks again for being on here, and I want to talk about how we met and some of the things that happened. How did you end up in Illinois? We'll get into your military career in a second, but I want to talk about when you left the Army and transition, and how did you end up being one of our neighbors?
Oh, wow. I don't think I've settled in one place more than a couple of years, even growing up. So when I think it was in the Iraq 2003, after we liberated Iraq, not invade, but we liberated Iraq. I met some really interesting people. And at that time, I was serving as a reservist. Again, I served all on active duty, guard, and reserve as well. And at that time, I was mobilized as a reservist. And I was ready for a transition when I came back from University of West Florida. And a friend that I've met told me about this great location in Chicago, great university. And my father was born and grew up here in Chicago. So I've always visited Chicago, loved Chicago, and had an opportunity to live here. So I came here, and here I am.
You dragged that poor family to the brazen cold. Oh my gosh.
I agree. Yeah, just some of the stories that we have, and as we say in the military, at least you volunteered for service, whereas your spouse and your kids didn't. And on top of that, they sacrifice and serve just as much. They just don't get paid for it. So that's the theme of my family as well. And I remember first year, we moved here in 2004, again, right after, Iraq. So right around Thanksgiving, I think we have some friends coming over. We had little kids, so we dressed them up, layered them up. It was fairly cold. We told them to go outside and play, and while we clean up the house, and 5 minutes later, our poor kids are walking back in, literally in tears. Cheeks are just beet red, just shivering, saying, "It's too cold to play outside. Can we come in?" And coming from Florida to Chicago, their blood hadn't thickened yet. So that's our fun first story of experience in Chicago.
Oh my gosh!
Wow. Your poor wife. We talk about every time we sit down, we speak about her and what a wonderful woman she is and how she held things together. And I just think it's the hard. I always say it's the hardest job in the military to be a military spouse. The resiliency, the tenacity, the all the great qualities that they have. in supporting us in our careers, so we can do what we do when we go down range and have focus, and the way they hold it together. And she does such a great job because you have amazing children and just a great family.
Well, thank you. And yeah, you're right. It's all my wife's doing, not mine.
Oh, I didn't blame you. I wasn't giving you credit for that. No.
You know what the second hardest job in the military is? Probably being Angel Taurus's commanding officer. That would probably be the second hardest job. But yeah.
Yeah, I should look up whoever that Navy guy was. I might know whoever that is. Look hard enough.
No kidding. There's no joke. So he was at recruiting command. I was a recruiter, an officer recruiter in Atlanta, Georgia, and my commanding officer was a 46 pilot, and he was one of the guys that actually crashed and walked away from it. Fast forward 8 years, I'm getting commissioned, and he's a professor at the Naval War College. So I call him up and I said, hey, Greg, sir, I just want to let you know, when I was recruiting, I used to take your business cards, go to Panama City and hand them out to all the girls and stuff. He's like, you son of a gun. He's like, they used to call me at all hours of the night.
Oh man,
that's a true story. I was that kind of little rat.
You're right. Thank God I never had you. Yeah. I don't know. Somebody would have gave up, either you or me.
So what was a young Steve Curda like, and why did you decide to join the military?
Oh gosh, great question. Again, my father, well, actually, let me back up a little bit. I don't know if you guys knew that I was adopted from Korea, and my adoptive father and mother, they have traced back here to Chicago. My father, as I mentioned, was born and bred. My mother, South Bend, Indiana, and graduated from high school, came here to Chicago and met. So when they moved to Michigan, that's when they adopted myself and my brother. And so I've always came, like holidays and what have you, we would visit Chicago because his family still lived here. So that's how I got to enjoy Chicago and get to know Chicago.
So which team? Which baseball team? Just curious.
Cubs. Yeah, he grew up north side of, so he's always a Cubs guy.
Okay, all right.
I do the Cubs too. So yeah. And when I looked around to go to college, again, my parents were very much the blue collar family. We weren't wealthy. We can afford to go to college. And somebody from high school, one of my teachers, talked about ROTC, and I said, okay, whatever that is, sure, I'll sign up. It means free college. And so that's how I joined, and thinking, signing and I remember this ROTC paper, and says, well, it's only 4 years and I'll be done, come back and we'll have free college paid for. And then here it is, 30 some odd years later, I was still in. And
you blink and it goes by that quick.
It did. It really did. It really did.
You're left with a bunch of scars and bad stories.
Yeah, and well, luckily, I've been very fortunate. I've never got the assignment, first 10 years on active duty, never got the assignment that I asked for, or the job that I asked for, or the branch assignment that I asked for. But you make the best of it and do the best of your ability, and it just has a way of working out. And some of the best assignments were those assignments that I never really asked for.
While we're on that, why don't we talk about some of those assignments? Because I understand how the Navy works, where officers have designators, and I know that in the Army they have intel and they have infantry and artillery and all these different. What was your designator, and what was one of the assignments that you swore this was going to be an uphill battle, and you went, wow, that really was a transformative kind of thing. Steve's better because of that.
Yeah, so when in your end of your third year in ROTC, you start selecting what we call branch. Again, infantry, intelligence, logistics, what have you. And I thought I wanted to fly helicopters. So believe it or not, at the time, we didn't have an aviation branch. We had transportation branch. And under it, you had the Chinooks and heavy duty helicopters. So I branched transportation, thinking I'm going to fly helicopters. Come to find out after I was branched, went in for a physical, apparently there was a sight requirement. And I was literally, well, not quite, but I had a very bad vision. So I
There's no
didn't.
sonar waiver?
What's that? No, it was so bad. It couldn't wave. It couldn't wave it.
No, a sonar waiver. You can hear it like a bat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, but nonetheless, I was stuck as a transporter. And wait a minute, I'm not going to fly and I'm going to be a logistician. This is not what I signed up for. But again, it turned out to be the best move. Saw how the Army works behind the scene, not necessarily as a combat arms guy, but really the logistics, make or break a battle or war or the fight. So learned that. And again, my very first tour was up in DMZ, Korea. That's not what I signed up for. I signed up for Fort Lewis, Washington, but they've sent me up to DMZ, and again, one of the best jobs that I've ever had. Whereas as I tell my story to some of the people who really want to hear it, to my kids, literally, whether they like it or not, I tell them the story. It's just, whereas my colleagues learned training environment, that's when what they learned military, what it's like in a training environment. I learned it under literally very intense wartime environment. So it wasn't whatever we did, it wasn't just a training mission. It was a real mission. Or the bad guys are going to shoot at you, bad guys are going to attack, bad guys are going to come across the DMZ and do bad things to you. So that's
it's always a real
that's
threat.
the environment I as a lieutenant. I'm sorry. What was that?
Isn't it?
One more time,
it's super stressful, isn't it? Being around the DMZ and having any moment it can go up. You just have that in the back of your head. Any moment this can go up.
Yeah, especially in the mid '80s, it really was very intense. In fact, there was I would say, shooting maybe every couple of months or so. Exchanges of volley and what have you. So it was very intense. But again, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah, it's you've clearly thrived through all of the assignments and kept a good attitude. So I always ask this question from our guests: are there any folks at any point from your military career, beginning from ROTC to your time taking off the uniform for the final time, that you want to shout out your greatest friends, mentors, or anybody that maybe just have these awful nightmares still thinking about?
Oh wow, yeah.
Angels
people that I need the people that I need to thank and acknowledge. I think there are too many. In fact, we'll be here for a couple of hours if I did. But my very first platoon Sergeant Boyd, Sergeant First Class Boyd, just an outstanding individual. He took care of me when brand new kid that didn't know what he was doing came to the platoon. From that all the way to you're right, my bosses, some good, some bad. In fact, one really bad one stands out. I was just telling my kids the other day. The reason I share my stories with my kids is that my daughter just joined Air Force ROTC. She received a scholarship and for the Army and Air Force, and she decided to join the Air Force.
The comfortable life. The comfortable life. I get it.
Yeah. So she's been asking me a lot of these questions, and so I share my experiences with her as we go, and talking about why I left active duty, and come to find out, well, I had it all. I mean, I was a company commander. I was in Republic of Panama as a young, single, foolish kind of guy that just enjoying life. Yeah, as you can imagine. Yeah, angels covering your face. But yeah, but I really had
because I'm hiding the tears because I'm so excited for you.
So yeah, from bad bosses. And I would say my last couple of bosses been really fantastic. General Vincent Brooks, he was just a great boss. I mean, I thought I was halfway smart, but when you're around people like that, you know how dumb you really are. I mean, the guy just gets as soon as you try to explain something to him, not only does he understand it, but he gets it and he's already about 10 steps ahead of you, and is asking these questions that you haven't even thought of. And you're supposed to be the expert. So just a fantastic boss. And even General Robert Brown, he was actually the last boss. Same thing, just a great guy. He knows how to work his staff. He knows how to be a commander. So there's just some of those things that I'm actually picking and choosing. Whenever I'm in a command position or leadership position, I try to emulate some of those certain things that I've done throughout my career.
And I have to ask, because we want to talk a lot about how, again, the theme of the show, we all serve, how you're continuing to serve, and you really exemplify that. So in that transition, what are some of the lessons that you've drawn, or maybe I'll phrase it a different way. Have you taken lessons from your military service that you've been able to apply in the world of academia, the world of nonprofit leadership, the world of government service? What lessons were clearly transferable?
Oh, wow. Great question. And you're right. No matter what you do, whether it be in military, even in businesses and corporations and academia, what have you, couple things matter. One, be a leader, because everything you do in life, even in a family environment, as kids, and it's kind of strange when you say, "Well, I'm a leader." Well, as a father or mother, you really are, and the principles of leadership still remain the same. You know, you protect your kids, you protect your people that you work with, you make them grow, whether it be, again, in business, military, or education, you make them grow. So I think the general philosophy of leadership applies no matter what environment you're in. It's just how you apply to do that. So, like I said, even in whether it be with your own kids, you want to give them opportunity to grow, provide the resources that they need to do their very best. And now, if you would have said that without mentioning kids and said that about the military, that's exactly the same thing. And now forget the military context and mention that in the business context. Again, same thing. So it's leadership and principles. I think it applies no matter what the context might be.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, speaking of those concepts, how did you go from academia to the director of IDVA, and what were some of the things you wanted to achieve and pursue while you were in that role, and then we'll talk about your current role. But that just fascinates me about the IDVA piece. And
yeah.
What was it like? I mean, I have no idea. What was it like being the director of IDVA?
Oh gosh, well, it's interesting because I retired in December of 2017. I thought I was done. My wife and I, we kind of joked and says, "Okay, now we can actually go make real money instead of the public servant or even academia salary." So we were about to do that, and I get a call from at that time Governor Rauner's office. A couple of staff members called and says, "Hey, Governor would like to speak to you. Is interested in looking at director of IDVA." And says, "Well, what happened to your current director? And besides that, I'm really not interested. I just retired. I'd like to relax a little bit and kick back and spend some time.
Not to be accountable all the time."
Yeah. And anyway, the following week, Governor calls and I'm catching myself saying, yes, sir, I can start right away. And literally about 2-3 weeks later, I did. And if you recall, this was in, whatever the election year was. I think the Governor Rauner was getting beat up because 13 veterans died of Legionella disease in one of our veteran homes. And the media just was so pressuring the current director at that time. She decided to step down. And plus, I think she had some really good jobs lined up anyway. So she just thought, you know what, I can do bigger and better things. Yeah, exactly. Than
That's
put
tough
up with this. So, and they needed somebody to come in for about a year and just kind of keep it on to steady the ship, so to speak. So,
were you doing a lot of damage control?
Yeah, it was. So when, again, my purpose wasn't to serve again, but when Governor asked, I felt like I had to step up and serve again because that wasn't the intent. But it was. Again, right, the media was hot and heavy, as you can imagine, during election year. 13 veterans died. And it just needed some stability, I think, at the leadership. And again, same leadership principle. You've got some very great qualified state employees that knows what they're doing. They just needed somebody to back them up, support them, and provide a little bit of direction. And that's, and
lift up morale, because people are never feeling great after an outbreak and all those kind of negative things come down, and you coming in with your I can envision you coming in with your kind of stabilizing and not overconfident, but confidence, and kind of, it's gonna be okay, guys. We're gonna get through this. Let's do it.
And that really was one of the main. Exactly, it really was. The morale, as you can imagine, was really low, as you said, and that was one of the main things that we really had to uplift. And I'd like to think we did, but yeah. Definitely, that's one main challenge that we had to fight.
So you're the fixer, because you right after that, shortly after that, you rolled right into IJF. And
I don't know about fixing it, but yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you, from as a veteran from the outside looking in, the changes and the influence and the tone across the enterprise and across the state as the word spreads, is a much different song. It's a much happier song than it was previously, which was kind of not what we would all want. And but before I talk about IJF, Shalom.
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm in that transition. You talked about moving from military service into IDVA. I guess. Before we transition over to the nonprofit world, which I am deeply, deeply passionate about, would you do anything different? What if you were starting from scratch? And please don't say joining the Navy. That's not even. I know that's not even up for discussion. Yeah, but
yeah,
I guess what? Yeah, Space Force. Hey,
we marathon that. I marathon that show. It was great.
I know, freaking awesome. I know.
And I would have done a shot for everything that we go, yeah, that probably actually happens like that. I would have been wasted.
Dr. Curda, if you want to join the We All Serve Hall of Fame, all you need to do is we need to have our first Space Force guest on the show. I am going to give huge, Angela and I are designing a challenge coin. And seriously, that person that even refers the first Space Force guest, oh my gosh, they get a personally delivered challenge coin. But okay, I'll move on from that. But what advice, I guess in a nutshell, what advice would you give to somebody considering military service? You talked about your daughter. So I mean that's spot on. But what advice are you sharing with your daughter for as somebody coming into the military? For all kidding aside, We All Serve is really, as I say in every single episode, it's not about a specific branch. It's not even about serving in uniform. It's really about service in general, giving back to community. What advice would you share?
Oh, great question. Yeah, in fact, I've been spending quite a bit of time with her, and In fact, I flew down to her school and drove her back, and we had about 20 hours on the road. So I was sharing. But if just something quick in a couple of minutes, I would say you can never predict your military life or career. And again, just briefly, I shared with you, I never got the assignments that I wanted, or the branch I wanted, or the job that I wanted. But you make the best of it. So my 2 cents to my daughter was, do your best. In fact, everybody believes in doing 50%, which is their normal. And I always encourage her to do just 10% more. Okay? Work that 10% more. So really you're working at 60% capacity. Okay, if you can do that, you're going to stand out. You're going to do well. And the good news is that, you know, at least with my kid, my daughter, she's much smarter than I am. So I can see her becoming 4-star general if that's the career she chooses. Because again, I just have to, nobody is going to outwork me. But she's not only tenacious, but she's also very smart. So I think that's going to set her even further. So I say, don't let anybody outwork you.
So she's got a lot of her mom in her.
I'm sorry?
So she's got a lot of her mom in her.
Definitely, yes, yeah.
Work ethic, got it. With Illinois joining forces, I became aware of Illinois joining forces when I first moved to Chicago, I think 2016, 17, something like that. And my understanding of the organization was they were the central hub for all the veteran service organizations around the state, and they were connected. The intent is to be the connector or the conduit for veterans that are leaving the service to get resources. And how is that going? And what is the way ahead? And what are you trying to achieve this year? Or
yeah, actually, pretty close. As you may know, that Illinois Joining Forces, really, as you said, we serve as a statewide private-public partnership that promote efficient delivery and growth and wellness initiative for our service members, veterans, and their families at the community level throughout the state. And that's really important because at IJF, our mission really is to connect our veterans with our support services around your community. Because our goal for all our veteran support organizations is to work together so that we share resources, share responsibility, and share understanding to ensure that no veterans left behind. Illinois, we are very fortunate because we have, if you look at GuideStar, we find roughly, and do a veteran military search on GuideStar, you find roughly 2,000 various different organizations.
What is GuideStar?
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of organizations within the state of Illinois. And either fortunately or unfortunately, you tend to get lost in that transaction. So that's where Illinois Joining Forces comes in. Whereas these 2,000 organizations, they work in singular issues.
Silos.
So for example, they work on, well, I wouldn't say silos, but singular issues, because they work on homelessness. And then there are different organizations who work on PTSD. There's different organizations who work with jobs, different organizations that work with emergency cash relief, and so on. But you're right, when the word that you use, silo, is that they don't necessarily communicate with each other. And that's where Illinois Joining Forces comes in. When Veteran Angel, for example, comes in, ask for our help, we're going to look at you holistically and then see which partners that I just named off that we can work with. So let's say Veteran Angel walks in and says, hey, I'm homeless and I need help. Just because we work with the organization, finds a homelessness and found you 30 days of place to live, doesn't mean it's problem solved. Everybody high five, we win and go home. No. Now we have to look at you holistically and look at, why are you jobless? Do you have a job? Or if you're homeless, obviously you may not have a job or a career. Do you know how to manage money? maybe even mental health elements of it. All those things goes into effect. So we work with all those organizations that work with homelessness, jobs, money management, emergency cash relief, all those organizations.
Dependency. I mean,
yeah,
a lot of folks, that it's a dependency
exactly.
issue, a mental health issue, a lot of factors. So you have caseworkers that actually work with veterans and look at what their resource. I know you were looking at some technology-based solutions to leverage that, but you have caseworkers that will sit down and say, okay, this is the person. What resources and almost like a process. It's a process, and
Yeah.
how do we get this person to being a thriving member of the community that they deserve to be?
Yeah. So when veterans call in, or you could be family members, could be dependent, what have you. When they call in, we have two veterans that manage what we call Care Coordination Center. And we don't particularly call them caseworkers, but basically that's what they do. We call them Care Coordination Center individuals.
Okay.
And so that's what they do. They work with you until your issue is resolved. And then again, it's not like any organizations that call and make one phone call and that's done. We do multiple calls with multiple organizations. In fact, just over the holidays, there was a veteran who just called with 4 kids. They were ready to be kicked out of they were in a transition hotel and they're being kicked out because he was jobless. He just lost his job and he actually did find something, but it doesn't start until February.
Wow.
So they're being kicked out. Well, we found an emergency cash relief organization that provided support for them so that, number one, you're not going to get kicked out tonight. You get to stay at least for another week. And while we had that week, we looked for long-term solutions. So the good news that we share with you, in fact, just today, the Veterans American Legion, VFW, and we call it the Dunkin' Donut Gang because they meet at Dunkin' Donut up on Dempster and Anyway, these are Vietnam veterans that, again, they're part of American Legion, VFW, and Vietnam Veterans Organization.
Are they up in Evanston?
In Morton Grove.
Morton Grove. Thank you. Yeah,
I know that one.
they stepped up and collected, I would say, close to $2,000, enough to carry them through till February, and when his job actually starts again in February. So that's the type of work that we do. And I tell you, it wasn't for that, they would be on the streets with 4 kids. They would be on the streets. So
you know what? It's to me in roles that I've been blessed to be in. It's those kind of phone calls and that kind of impact that I know you and your wife talked about. We're gonna get out and we're gonna get paid and let's go ahead and pick out a lake house or something like that. And it's those kind of phone calls that are that really transcend financial gain, because I know a lot of people that are in very meaningful financial positions that don't have the fulfilled life and the job satisfaction, the impact that they take with them and they carry with them, and it's immeasurable. It's just something you can't put your finger on or quantify.
Yeah. No, very true. Yep, it is.
And all things considered, I mean, the work that you're doing, your experiences that you have had, when you look at the world of veterans 10 years from now, what's your vision? What's your hope? What's your aspiration?
Gosh, I don't know about the vision part, but hope anyway. I would love for and again, it's really unfair to even state this, because any large organization is not the answer. So even the federal VA, they do the best they can, and given its circumstances and given its resources, and they do a very good job, but they're not the answer. State definitely is not the answer either. But it's the partnership between the federal VA, the state VA, and all these not-for-profit organizations, as I mentioned, 2,000 just here in the state of Illinois. Imagine if we can all work together, because suicide prevention, for example, federal VA is spending millions and millions, which is, thank God they do. But at the same time, they're only reaching a small percentage of our veterans. But it's those not-for-profit organizations and down in communities, they're the ones who actually are aware. And they're the ones who really need the resources that could actually either prevent and have an impact. So imagine if they were to marry each other and work together, how great that would be. So wishful thinking, and I know even federal VA and even state, that's one of the reasons that IJF was found. It's a state effort to do just that. But at the same time, there's very little resources that comes with that. And you talk about leadership lessons earlier. One of the biggest things that I found is that resources. If you want to do something, that's what it takes, resources. So, yeah.
Well, you have gone all in throughout your career and making a difference. And for that, I am thankful. And I hope that this is the first of many times, because I think for all of the referrals we've gotten, I think, Steve, I think you should have been on this show maybe already like 9 times.
Oh, well, thank you. And sounds like you've already had some great guests. And you're right, Knudsen, he's a troublemaker. I'm glad he started you guys off. Yeah, and Director Linda Chapelivia, she's doing some awesome work, and she's again in a very challenging job. So, yeah, sounds like you had some great people. Great. So I'm just honored to be here and start off the new year. But thank you guys for giving people the voice. I think that's important.
Well, like you, we want to be of service, and we want to support our brothers and sisters, and having people like citizens like you that don't make, you're like, I'm not going to make this impact. I'm not going to change the world today, but I'm going to change this. This is what I can do right now. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to do something else, and I'm going to change that, and I'm going to make everything better. And you definitely have left an impact and an imprint to me and all the people that know you. I'm privileged to work with you here in the city and state of Chicago, state of Illinois, sorry. And so thank you.
Was there like a message behind that, Angel? Did you just call it the state of Chicago?
Yeah, it's Chicago and everywhere else. And Steve knows what I'm talking about, because they say it's I-80 and everything else.
Yeah.
So I got caught up in my thoughts. I was like,
exactly. Now, one of the things that we try to really make a difference, because IJF is a statewide organization, and since its creation 2012, we really did have to focus on Chicago and the Chicago-centric. So last couple of years, we really tried to expand down to the rest of the state, as we say. And you're right, as we get calls and services requests, we try to track some of the data that's associated with, okay, what's down south of I-80? And
Peoria.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Again, a reminder to anybody that has tuned in, and I've been watching the numbers as we've been talking, and lots of people interested in the conversation. I'll throw this up there on the screen because why not? I see we got a comment over here. Airborne all the way. That's right. There we go. And what I will do over here is I just want to make sure people know where they can find IllinoisJoiningForces.org to support the incredible work of our guest over here, our Brigadier General retired Steve Curda. Please visit the website. As we always say on the program, we all serve, and that's not about a branch of service. And it's really about everybody stepping up, especially in this period of COVID. The community needs you, veterans need you, and we look forward to continuing to share that inspiration with all of you. So come back next week. We have a fantastic guest. Angel, do you want to give a shout out to our friend David Rader who's coming on?
Yeah, David Rader is just became the deputy director for Office of Secretary of Defense. He ran worked with. I met him through 4Block, which is a not-for-profit that helps veterans transition. EY did a lot of government work and just an amazing human being. So I'm excited to have him.
I used to have a friend that used to say, "Same place, same time, same socks," but we won't go with that.
And buy those socks at Kirkland or at Costco. Everything there is fantastic.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe I should change the link up there on the screen. And okay. Well, we'll leave it there. Again, thank you, General Curda, for joining us. And thanks for all the important work that you do. And Angel, my friend, I look forward to checking back with you on yet another episode of We All Serve. But until then, to all of our listeners, we will see you soon.
Hey, guys, enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.